Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 26th episode of By the Drip. This podcast is all about coffee, entrepreneurship, and the incredible people we meet through the story of coffee. I'm your host, David Crosby, founder of ROSSO COFFEE ROASTERS, and I'm joined today with my co-host, Cole Terode, World Barista Champion finalist. Today's episode kicks off with Hunter Tedman, a fourth-generation coffee farmer from Panama, and we dive straight into the controversies surrounding the prestigious Best of Panama competition. We discuss the uproar over infused coffees and breaking the rules and the intense reactions from the coffee community. Hunter sheds light on how this controversy is shaping the future of the Best of Panama competition and the importance of maintaining transparency in the world of specialty coffee. We also talk about Hunter's coffee farms and his sustainable farming practices and the impact of soil health on coffee quality and his journey through the ever-evolving coffee industry. And one more thing. Our podcast is now in video format and you can find us on YouTube. So please check out By the Drip. And on YouTube, we review our weekly newsletter. We have coffee competition reaction videos, and of course, this podcast with other coffee professionals. Okay, let's dive into our conversation with Hunter.
All right. Hello and welcome back to By the Drip. Dave and I are joined today with Hunter Tedman. Hunter is a man with a large introduction. He wears many hats. Maybe, Hunter, I'll start with a brief introduction and then you can dive a little bit further into your roles. So Hunter is the president of the Specialty Coffee Association of Panama. He is the founder and operator of Black Moon Farms in Panama, which has just recently won the record price for varietal coffee coming out of the Best of Panama auction. Big smile on Hunter's face as that news leaks out to the world. Hunter also operates two other businesses, Hacienda Barbara and San Francisco Bay Coffee. So a man of many hats, and I'm sure there's a lot more there that I'm missing. But Hunter, welcome to By the Drip, and thank you for being here with us today.
Hello, Cole and David. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Where should we start? Should we talk a little bit about your role as a coffee producer? Or do you want to start by talking maybe a little bit about your role as the president of the Specialty Coffee Association in Panama?
I guess I can give you like a brief history, right, of how I got here.
Sure. Perfect.
I come from as many of us in this industry, we come from a long history of many generations probably of being in the coffee business, and I'm no exception. I'm in the fourth generation of a coffee farming family. In my case, sometimes I don't refer to that too much because I feel like we jumped a generation. Like my father's generation, they were really involved, but they were more focused on other businesses, agricultural businesses. And the reason for that was, in the 90s and 80s, the prices were very low. To this day, we still refer to that time as the coffee crisis years, where the coffee was at a historical low price, and but many things came out of that things and that era, and one of those was the Specialty Coffee Association of Panama, which started basically as a survival mechanism. In those days, looking to position our coffee in a better way. So, yeah, I was born in a hospital in the city, but let's say I grew up part of my childhood in. I wasn't born in the farm actually, but my first years I lived on a farm, so. My playmates or whatever were the workers' kids, and we used to play in the coffee fields all the time, and yeah, it was really fun. So it kind of gets into you, right? It becomes part of you really quick. And so later, I was always interested in like sciences. I thought I wanted to be like a biologist. You know, we like nature and stuff like that. So, but then I learned that there was that you could actually go to school to study agriculture. I didn't know that when I was in high school. So I went to university and I got an agronomy degree. So yeah, I am an agronomist, but that's my career.
And where do you go to get the degree, Hunter?
I got it in Earth University in Costa Rica.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. It's a tropical agriculture university.
Okay.
And so yeah, when I came back to college, I worked. From college, I worked I was kind of involved in the farm. Maybe consulting a little bit, but I wasn't hands-on in coffee for some years. I helped my dad a little bit with his other businesses. He was more into vegetable production and other crops. I worked on a golf course for some time. Then out of that, I came. Since I started working in a golf course, I learned a lot about landscaping and all that. So I started a landscaping business that I run for a few years. But then I came back to coffee. And the way I came back was, as you mentioned, I worked for San Francisco Bay Coffee. It's a roaster out of California. We're based in Lincoln, California, which is a small city town about a half hour from Sacramento.
Maybe we can slide in and talk a little bit about the Best of Panama. I'm familiar, Dave is familiar, but I think a lot of people that would be listening to this don't necessarily know what that is, or if they do, they don't necessarily know the work and efforts that go into it from both an organizational perspective from SCAP or from a producer's perspective, like yourself submitting coffees in to participate. Could you maybe tell us a little bit about the Best of Panama?
Yes. The Best of Panama started 28 years ago. This was our 28th edition. And it started right when SCAP started. The Specialty Coffee Association was formed, and they immediately started. They knew they had to make like a competition.
Okay.
A coffee competition.
So this is in the crisis. This is in the coffee crisis that you referenced earlier. Yes.
I think by the time, the prices were maybe a little bit higher, but yeah, they were super low.
Okay.
Very low in the 90s is when it started. And just as a history, a little bit of history here. Before SCAP, there was a group where the founders of SCAP were there also. It was called Greg Span. It was a group of producers of non-traditional crops. They were all coffee farmers, but they were trying to grow lettuce. They were exporting like onions, growing, like my dad used to grow asparagus, things like that were not common those days here.
Okay.
And basically looking for other ways to make a living because coffee was so cheap. But they were all coffee farmers. So when they stopped that, it kind of formed SCAP. It was kind of the same group. They continued and formed SCAP, and the BOP started 28 years ago. In the first year, the results were incredible because they had the competition and they were already. And please don't. I'm gonna guess, but I think that like the top price was like $3 and something in auction. The first bill.
Wow.
Which in those days was like triple the price of the market. So it was already a huge success. I mean, it was like a crazy price, $3 a pound.
The auction would have happened in person, I imagine.
I don't remember, but the cupping was done in a few tables, and they invited some people. They already invited like judges and everything in the first time. So there were some important people, but also specialty was on its baby steps.
Right.
There was something that it was just coffee, and some people they used to call it specialty, but there was nothing special about it, and the price was not special. It was still like blended in with the commercial. It was like, yeah, this is specialty, but nobody was paying more for it. Like, maybe a little, but not.
And bid with your paddle, right?
Yeah. I don't remember how it was. Maybe they bought it right away. I don't remember. I was a kid. I know it was going on, but I was in high school or something. So then it started, and then quickly, a few years later, the prices started increasing and this and that, and then the discovery of geisha, right? The Peterson family found they acquired a farm in Jaramillo, and that farm had geisha in it, or at least in some areas. And of course, by then they were all copying, right? Because before that, nobody was copying or not seriously copying. So by then, everybody was copying, everybody was good at it. So they immediately identified that there was something different with those trees, something different in the cup, floral. Wow, what is this? And they won the BOP that year. The price got to, I don't remember, but
I think it was $20 a pound.
21 or something, yeah, the 20s, and then 30s and stuff. And then a few years later, it finally broke like the $100 mark, maybe next year or some years later. Actually, that year, the first auction site platform that they were using crashed. And the guy that was running it called them like, we got hacked. They thought it was a hacker. But in reality, the platform was not ready for 3 digits. And nobody thought coffee could go, to 100. So the thing wasn't ready. There were no digits for it. And then after that, they learned or they called the guy or something, and he's like, "No, I'm for real. It's $100." And so that was the first year it broke like that mind, thing of $100 a pound.
Right.
And it's been growing since. And last year was crazy. We had $10,005 per kilogram, which is 5,000, let's say, around per pound.
Yeah.
And even last year, like this year, everybody was like, "Are you expecting to break the record?" We were like, I don't know. That's a big step, because we were coming from like what it was, like 2,000 something. I forget these numbers, but the jump from the previous record was huge. To last year. But we learned that, it's doable. Now it's not one. Now it wasn't one coffee; it was 2 coffees, right, above $10,000. So I think that'll change forever. I don't know if we'll hit it next year, but I'm sure it's going to be close.
Have you considered what the economics are on $10,000 per kilo if I wanted to buy a cup of coffee as a customer? Have you done that math? Just out of curiosity.
I haven't. I mean, I've done it, but I don't remember. But I knew like last year they were selling in some of the coffee shops. They had the coffee. I think it was like $900 a pour, like a 15 or 18 gram pour.
That's healthy. I did the economics on the $10,000 per kilo, and I figure it's about $12 per gram. roasted product. So that's cost of goods. Let's say hypothetically, I bought that coffee. I'm going to roast it and put it into the market. I figure it costs me about $12 per gram roasted. So if you want a small little cup, I'm probably charging you about $200, depending on how big of a cup that's going to be, which I think is still tangible. I think there's still,
that's not too bad.
Yeah, it's not
People would pay for that. Yeah.
Crazy. We're not going to buy that every day of the week. That's not going to be our go-to.
Come on, that's crazy. Don't give me that's not too bad. That's crazy.
It's crazy, but it's not that. It's not that crazy because maybe 4 years ago, or when we were selling our top coffees for over $1,000 or like $2,000 a pound, they were already selling out in those coffee shops, and they were selling like for $120 a cup and stuff like that.
Right.
So yeah, it's crazy for 99.9999 of the people, of us, but it's not that crazy for some people.
Right.
And yeah, so $200.
I think an average consumer, it's a little tough to hear because they don't know the difference between a coffee that's sold at $100 versus one that's sold at $10,000. And is there really an incremental difference in quality and flavor? And, some coffee professionals would say yes. And then others would say, yeah, it's better, but it's not incrementally better.
It's marginal, hard to notice, how peachy is that peach note?
It's peachy, man.
I hope it's peachy. For $200 a cup, I'm hoping there's a lot of peach in there.
But the thing is that, you're right. You're absolutely right. It's very difficult to tell for most people, even people in the industry. And now, Cole, you were here during the Best of Panama, and experienced coppers know the difference. Yeah. And it happens to me. It happens every year. For example, I'm a judge in the BOP, and I'll go back to that. So I'll explain how this works. But I'm a judge, national judge. So we cup the first round, and a lot of times you're cupping. You cup hundreds of geishas, and then you go like, well, this is good, and then another one, yeah, very good. But you don't find that, but somewhere in that competition, suddenly in one of those tables, you hit one of those that eventually are going to be the winners. And you go like, this is the Panama Geisha. Like this is the cup that puts us in the map every year. There might be 80 others that are extremely good, but once you cup one of those, you're like, no, like there's nobody else, nowhere else in the world that has this one. Maybe similar to the other ones, but this one specifically, you won't try it anywhere else than here. For some reason, like I said, I'm not bragging. It's just a fact. I don't know why, but it happens. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You're asking what it scored, Dave? I think the winners were 96, 95, and Hunter's Chirroso was a 94. And the 94, I believe, was 2 points on average above the number 2 coffee in Varietals, if I remember correctly. Like what Hunter's explaining on, there's a few coffees that jump off the table. You're cupping exceptional, and then you just have this like unicorn legendary that I remember in the debrief for Hunter's Chirroso that the entire audience, everybody in the room has this as the overwhelming favorite. And it's not like we're, picking things apart to figure out who's the winner. It's like, no, Chirroso won. Like not even a fight realistically, leaps and bounds ahead. I think the other categories were not as close. The geishas were a little bit more headbutting to figure out who was going to win.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And going back to, because you said something that Like it's the churroso that won. But in reality, nobody knows. And I'll go back to
nobody knew.
How,
correct.
In that moment, I'll go back to how the BOP works, specifically, and for transparency. We, as farmers, well, for once, you have to be a SCAP member to be able to compete in the BOP. That's very easy. You get accepted. It's not something like... there's nobody here that would say, like, I can't compete because I'm not accepted in SCAP. Yeah, you have to be a SCAP member to compete in the BOP, West of Panama. And that's very easy. I mean, you apply and you are accepted and you can compete if you're not already a member. And then during the years, there has been many different categories that we add or remove from the competition. But years ago, it used to be only one category, right? But we quickly, like I said, I was probably in college, but the members those days, of course, they were like, nobody else is winning as if we have geishas, competing with catuais and other varieties. Like it was almost unfair, right, for the other varieties. So they split in two categories: geishas and varietals, or traditional, it was called in those days. And when the naturals happened, it was a very something that happened here in Panama, where we started doing like super high-end naturals, because naturals used to be like a thing of like a second class coffee. But when we started playing with naturals, then the good naturals were like beating every wash in the table. So they said, "Oh, we have to split it again. Now we need wash and natural categories because it wasn't fair for the wash." And then at some point we had a Pacamara category, because the Pacamaras were always better than the rest of the varieties. Now that's gone. So now these days we have 3 categories in the BOP: geisha wash, geisha natural, and varietals. Varietals is everything that is non-geisha, and it can be wash, honey, anaerobic, natural, whatever process you want to put there. It's in that category. In naturals, any shape or form of geisha natural can be in there. It can be fermented, not fermented. It's a sensory. It's based on sensory analysis or copying the category. It's not based on SCAP going to audit your farm and see what is that you did, if you really wash it or not. No, it's how it tastes. So, and then we have the wash category, which is supposed to be like a super clean, no flavors or aromas coming from the skin. That's how I describe it. If you're going to wash, your coffee cannot have flavors or acidity or characteristics coming from the fruit, which, as you know, it's like, because like berries or blueberries or strawberries or winey and all kinds of things that sometimes are in wash coffees and super good coffees, but those flavors in most cases come from some kind of interaction with the fruit. You either fermented it with the fruit, it stay in the bag too long. There's 1,000 reasons why wash coffees are fruity. In this case, we just want clean coffees that taste like coffee, not like processed, as we call it. So those are the 3 categories.
And the producer would send this in, and then you, as the national jury, are cupping it and then saying, this is a wash based on this expression of the coffee, or this should be natural, not based on what I submitted as.
No, it's based on what you submitted. So as a farmer, you submit your coffees to competition. So for example, I went in and submitted 1 wash, 1 natural geisha, one wash case, and one varietal, right? So they go in competition. If my wash coffee cups fruity for some reason, or fermenty, or winey, or something, then we have on our cupping form, we have an extra box in which you put a range from 0 to 5. 0 meaning zero process, 5 meaning fruity, winey processing. If your coffee averages 2.5 or more, that coffee gets disqualified from the competition because it doesn't taste like a wash. And it's kind of there's always people that say no, but it's a wash. But wash are allowed to be fruity. Yeah, I know. My best wash coffees are fruity, and my customers love it. They're the best. But for competition, we draw a line. It's like no, it has to be clean, super clean, not fruity, not maybe slightly, because the rule allows you to have a 1 or a 2. But if your average is 2.5 or more on a scale of 5, you're out in wash category. So yeah, the farmer is responsible for submitting the coffee in the category that it's supposed to be. Like if you by mistake submitted a coffee as a wash and it was like a honey or something and you got disqualified, it's your fault. You're responsible for that. So anyway, the coffee, as a farmer,
Sorry, could I ask one more question?
Sure.
Could I submit a coffee that's gone through like a yeast inoculation, or is that not allowed?
It's allowed. It's allowed.
Okay.
But again, I'm going back to sensory. If it tastes fruity, yeasty, or something, then you might get in trouble. But as long as yeah, the yeast thing is always a discussion. There's always a discussion of like, should we use it, should we not? At the moment, we use it. And as far as I know, or the ones that I use in my farm, like sometimes we use, the commercial ones that are Saccharomyces cerevisiae, which is found in coffee anyways. The piquias we find in coffee, so we still consider those like we don't consider them as additives for now. But it's always there's always a discussion. It's not an easy topic. So, anyways, as a farmer, you go there, and then at some point you're given a date and a time where you have to actually bring the coffee to the SCAP offices. It's received there. And then while you're there, you sign that you're dropping your coffee there. You go to the place where the coffee is stored. The coffee is put in vacuum boxes and all this. One box of 25 kilograms has a label with your name, Black Moon, Chiroso, whatever. And that one is put on the back of the building and those are the coffees that are going to go for auction if you qualify for the auction. The rest of the coffee, because we submit 42 kilos and only 25 are auctioned. The rest is used for competition, for roasting and for samples, the samples that we send around the world once we start the auction process. Well, the rest of the coffee doesn't have a label. You go there as a farmer and you pick an envelope randomly. You pick it yourself, and that envelope has like a sticker with hidden 3 hidden codes. They're hidden by another sticker, a sticker over another one. So they stamp that into the box. Into your coffees, they glue it into your coffee bags, and they keep a copy of it, which they clip to the one that has your name and everything, the name of the farm, the name of the lot. They put that into an envelope, they seal it. This is all done by external auditors. Nobody that works for SCAP, no farmer, nobody from the board, nobody is able to not even go into the room. Only the farmer goes into the room once. Only the auditors keep the keys, it's locked. So they get that envelope, they clip it really well so nobody can see. They put it in a bag, they seal it. It's a bag like the ones you use like for DHL or FedEx, they have a glue. Boom. And they stuck it in a safe. Nobody has the let's say the combination for the safe. They put it in there. So at that point, your coffee becomes a sticker with codes. So in the first round, they peel one of those little stickers and you have one code, 1, 2, 3, maybe. That's the answer. So when it's roasted, when it goes to the cupping room and everything on the first round, the national round, it's cupped by national judges. We cup the 180 lots or whatever are submitted. And then only 24 of each of the 3 categories pass to the semifinals, which is the international round. So that code goes into the tables, and at that point, your coffee becomes a code. So we cup them all, nobody knows. It's a common myth, like oh, Hunter, you can find your coffee there. No, you can't. I mean, there's so many. And yes, maybe I can think like, well, this is similar to my coffee, but there's 10 others similar. So you're never sure. You don't know which coffee is yours. But the thing is that you, as a national judge and in the national round, we only decide who the top 24 are that pass. On the international round, we don't cup. I mean, we can cup, but we cup separately in another room just for fun. Our scores don't count, are not added into the system or anything. And then Skoll knows, he was here. All the international judges are on a closed room. Nobody can go in there. And they cup all the coffees. But on the second round, the auditors, they peel the second sticker. So whatever coffee had 1, 2, 3 code now becomes ABC. So nobody can keep track of the coffee. Nobody knows which coffees went into the next round. And they're different codes, so nobody can identify them really. And the same happens when they go to the final table, which is the 10 best coffees. They go into another round of the final table, the last day. And then the third sticker is peeled from those 10 coffees. It's another coffee. Nobody knows which one it is. So that's basically, it's very transparent, but very secret. Like nobody knows which coffee you're cupping, who the farm is, who the farmer is, what variety it is. You don't have a clue, really. Of course, in the last table, national judges, we start like suspecting and joking, like, oh, this is mine, this is yours, But in reality, you never know. So that's why Cole says, like, well, on the last table, on the final of the Varietals, everybody was like, yeah, the winner. But nobody knew it was the Chiroso. Some people suspected because maybe they have experience and they say, oh, this tastes similar. But there are other Ethiopian land races that are kind of similar also. So they would ask me, like, is that the Chiroso? I'm like, I hope. I wasn't, you're never 100% sure. And especially like wash geishas, they're super similar. So you never know. And then on the last day of the BOP, which is Saturday, the cupping ends like at noon, around noon. And then like at 4 in the afternoon, let's say 4 in the afternoon, our head judge, which is an international judge, Will Young in this case, goes with the auditor that has the combination to the safe with the list of codes. Now they know the winners. They know the codes, not the names. So they open the safe and they go one by one, open every envelope, matching codes with names. The ceremony starts at 7. So basically, there's a gap of maybe half hour to an hour where 2 people know who the winners are. And it's super secret. They don't share. They don't tell anyone. They make the certificates by hand. They write the name. And then in the ceremony is where everybody, they start calling names, and then you know who won. It's very exciting, super exciting. It's like the Oscars. It's like the best kept secret in Panama. Nobody knows until the end.
How did it feel to achieve number 1 in varietals? How did it feel for you?
I mean, amazing, because one, like, I planted that variety thinking that we had a chance. So yeah, last year we were second. Last year we got second on our first harvest of the variety. So this past harvest, we made some, we tweaked the process a little bit. We kind of knew where we had to shoot now. We're supposed to change this, and that, and I think we'll make it. And it worked. So it's super exciting. It's a thing of not like winning for winning. It's because we intentionally did things to win, and they worked. So that feels great, because a lot of times it's like, we did the same and we won. But no, we intentionally changed some things in our processing, trying to win. Earlier in the year, our friends, our customers, and they would ask me, like, you think you're going to win this year? And I would say, I know we have the winner. I don't know if I'll choose it.
Oh, wow.
Because at the end, you're copying, you have your own mini best of Panama in your farm, right? And you have, 50 lots. Some people have 200 lots that you cup and cup and cup, and you choose your coffee that you're going to submit. And I think a lot of times we leave the winner on the table. Maybe that day we didn't roast them right or something, and maybe I left the winner on the table. And so that's the other half of the competition. I was still like, I know I have the winner. I hope I choose it. I hope I choose right. And we did. So it felt great, especially knowing the super high score that the judges gave it. 94.1 puts a varietal shoulder to shoulder with the best geishas, which is huge.
Right.
Here it's maybe in some other places you see competitions where varietals are close to geishas and stuff like that. But here is very, very difficult. Geishas here are very...
Yeah, there's always been a gap between the two.
There's always a huge gap. Yes. Yeah.
So there's kind of 2 big news stories that came out. Obviously, we've talked a little bit about the price. And I guess the other controversy that kind of came out of BOP this year was you guys released a statement kind of talking about infused coffees and where you guys as a group stand on it. And I don't know if you want to talk us through kind of what the statement means for yourself and everyone in Panama. And then I think people would be super interested to hear what you guys think what is an infused coffee, and then where that sits in our industry.
Yeah. Okay. For us specifically, an infused coffee is the one that has flavors that come from things that you add to it that are not coffee. It can be fruits, it can be flowers, it can be spices, or it can be artificial flavors or oils. For us, all of that is infused. because you're using an ingredient, basically. You're putting in an ingredient that is not coffee, right? All of them to us are infused. Of course, there's a rainbow of things that you do or farmers do. Some co-ferment, which means they get a pineapple or some fruit and they put it in the tank with coffee, and some of them get like that specific fruit aromas or flavors in the coffee. That's, to me, that's kind of difficult to do, because we've played a little bit in 1 kilo batches and things like that, and usually the flavor that you get at the end is not the fruit that you added. You change of course you change the coffee, but not necessarily taste like a pineapple, for example. They taste similar, maybe, or fruity, but not necessarily that's the fruit you're adding. But let's say that's like the one end of the spectrum, right? Is the co-fermentation with natural fruits and stuff like that. Then you have some that add other things, spices, cinnamon, stuff like that. That's more, you could say they're more invasive a little bit, or more that, I mean, you put like cinnamon in coffee, it'll taste like cinnamon. Your grinder will smell like cinnamon. Everything. It's super strong. And then there are the ones that add artificial flavors, oils or flavors. And in that spectrum also of all these things that I'm talking about, some people do it in the dry, some people do it in the wet processing, some people do it during fermentation, others do it to green coffee. They actually add something to the already dry green coffee. There's all kinds of things. So for us, that's infusion. And we are not like against it, right? As a business, if it works for a farmer, it works for a farmer. That's okay. Actually, I think most people agree with us or with me that the general issue and in the industry, most people agree that the issue is transparency. If you're adding something, you have to say you did, because somebody's going to drink it. It's like buying anything. You go on the label and it says what it has, right? I mean, we drink really bad stuff, knowing. You look at the label, it's full of artificial colors and everything. You would drink it anyways, but we know. So if we're listing issues, that's the first one. It's like, just say you did it. The problem in the best of Panama specifically was that the coffees that we found that had external flavors, you could say. Like I said, we don't audit the farm. We don't go there and see, rate the meal and see what is ingredients that you're putting. We don't know. But it definitely had very strong flavors that were evidently or were not from the coffee. You can tell. So they were disqualified. So that was the particular issue for the rest of Panama. Those coffees are not allowed because it's a competition. So you're supposed to compete with coffee. And that's where, as you mentioned before, the yeast topic comes in. So people say, well, you're adding yeast. Well, as long as you're not adding like sugars or molasses or something to it, yeast, they'll produce a flavor that's there already. You already have those species in there. So it's debatable, let's say. But the other things like adding fruits and stuff like that, it's not allowed for the rest of Panama. So yeah, that was probably that's why the statement came out. We feel that and some people ask like, oh, maybe in the future you should have another category. No, I don't think it's going to happen in the near future in Panama. But yes, if somebody wants to compete with these coffees, they should have a competition for them. It's not going to be in the best of Panama. because we feel that, we're promoting our terroir, our varieties, our cultural practices. So the moment you start adding things, we will lose what we gained during almost 30 years really quick. Imagine the scenario that we decided to accept infused coffees in the best of Panama. You as a buyer, you're gonna come the first year and say, "Oh wow, these coffees are great. It's infused," but they're infused. So maybe you're gonna pay some money for them. Second year, you're gonna say, "Well, these guys are infusing everything now. Who knows what?" Third, fourth year, it's gone. The best of Panama is gone. You lost everything that has us, here. You lose it because you lose that thing that, Panama is unique because, they have this jasmine and things naturally. The moment we started adding it, everybody's going to say, it's good, but we can do that anywhere. We will lose credibility really fast, and the best of Panama would disappear in a matter of short years. I think that's what we think.
In a way, we're seeing that in the competitions of barista and brewers. People are losing general interest in viewing. Some people are losing interest in participating. We know some judges that have walked away because the theme you're seeing is the same coffees showing up, and a lot of these coffees are within the sort of realm that people describe as infused, engineered, whatever you want to call it, non-natural occurring flavors showing up in the profile. And frankly, it's really boring to use those coffees to compete, and it's created, in a sense, a bit of a boring underlying sentiment rather than exploring, up and coming producers or people who are doing it in a very natural or beautiful way that works with nature. We're just creating these, flavored, however you want to say that, flavored beverages that appeal to a score sheet in the competition for barista and brewers, etc. That I think would do exactly what you're talking about. It would dismantle the best of Panama, and people would lose track of why are we doing this?
Exactly. And I think that's one of the issues, that we're in a world where nobody wants to say, like, no, you're not allowed, right? Do anything. Everybody's like, now, especially like big institutions or associations and things, they want to be like always in a gray area. Like in the case of SCAP, we decided, no, we're going to say no, you're not allowed. That's it. But for bigger associations, it's difficult these days to say no, like to something like that, and to their there's a point. So it's difficult to prove in some cases, because for those who don't know, they say, oh, you send it to a lab, they'll tell you, it's infused. No, it's not that easy. In most cases, they probably will, because you're putting too much of whatever ingredient, and then it shows on a lab test or something. But in some cases, it doesn't. At least not yet. It's a new thing. So that's why in some cases we tell, like, you should have a rule that says, no infused coffees, and the response is like, well, but we can't prove it. How do we prove it? So that's the thing. And so in the end, and once as a copper or as a coffee enthusiast, or somebody that's mindfully like drinking coffee, not just for caffeine, you're looking for attributes and stuff like that, like a coffee enthusiast. Once you try one of these coffees, they're very easy to tell. you know when you're drinking an infused coffee. You know. And when you come from the farming world, you know even better because you probably you've tried it or you've tasted or or because you know things like what I say, like you put strawberries in a tank with coffee and or you put peaches on a tank, on a fermenting tank, and when you roast that coffee, it doesn't smell or taste like a peach candle, those scented candles. And most infused coffees taste that way, very synthetic. So, to me, personally, I'm a personal, no, not SCAP, not president, not anything, like a personal thing. I think in most cases, or not, in a lot of cases would be the right expression. They're adding something. They're adding oils or they're adding some, maybe natural flavors, but they're adding flavors. Like they say they put a fruit, but in reality they added something. Because you can try it. Try fermenting a coffee with peaches. Yes, it'll taste fruity, maybe peachy, but the ones that you get in the market usually taste very artificial, like a scented candle, peach, or bubblegum, like cherry bubblegum. I mean, cherries don't taste that way. So why would roasted coffee taste that way? Roasted, imagine you already burned it. Why would it taste that way? It's very difficult that the natural fruit imparts that particular flavor like a bubblegum. And to me, again, personal opinion, it's very I worry because nobody's saying anything, and that it's potentially hazardous it's not safe maybe to drink. I don't know. Well, I don't know, but maybe I don't think it is.
Right. We don't know. We're at
Yes.
an infant spot in the industry in terms of food science, infusion engineering with coffee, and we don't know if it's safe or not. Do you think next year you'll have more participants that try to maybe, push the line, push the boundaries of what is allowed going into the BOP? Do you think this is something you'll incur again, or do you think the statement and sort of stance that you and many other producers took will deter anybody from trying any funny business, let's say, and submitting a coffee like this again?
I think, I mean, of course, there's the possibility. I mean, people are selling coffee for $10,000 a kilogram. The temptation is there.
Right.
Right. But I think it's going. No, I hope not. I hope not. Most of us are in this business of Panama Geisha or specialty luxury, whatever you want to call it, coffees. We know that we have to do the opposite. We have to take care of that. Like Panama Geisha is like our baby. We want to take care of it. We want to. The brand, we only use it in a certain way. We only promote it in a certain way. Our coffees, we want them to taste or a certain way. That is what that has put us in the position we are. So yeah, I don't expect that. I think most people that compete are very convinced that that's not the way to enhance our Panama coffees. But the temptation is there, and we are looking for. We're already working on a way to analyze these coffees and try to prove it on a lab. We already gathering the data and stuff like that, and looking for maybe around the world. We already do it for the varietal category. The top coffees that of the varietal category, they're all sent for DNA sampling the week after the BOP. Because even though, let's say that she also won, if it comes back with some genetics of geisha, I'll be disqualified. So we already use these kinds of labs. For example, this one is in France. We send all the samples to France to get DNA tested. So maybe in the future we will do that with the other coffees to see if they're not infused. But we have to look for, some lab or something that does it. And I think there are some options that we found. So yeah, at the end, I think it's not. You could say or argue that it's a human. How do you say?
Humans will do anything they can to
thing, right? Nature, yeah, because one, the prices and the name and the marketing is there, so the temptation is there, and the association grows every year. More competitors signing or submit lots to the BOP. So as we grow, that circle grows, and then some people might come in that I want to test and see how far they can go. I hope not, but I think it's human nature. Yeah, right. It might happen again.
Human nature to do non-human things with their coffee.
Yeah. But yeah, the idea is to keep promoting. I mean, some people expected us to go into this war against infused coffees. No, that wasn't the idea. That wasn't the plan, and that was not the objective of that statement. It's just a BOP statement specifically. Like I said, maybe, I'm sure it's a legitimate business to co-ferment and all that and test the things that you want to test and tell them and show them in Instagram, like a lot of people do. They show pictures of fermenting with, hey, I respect that a lot. You're trying to get a better price for your coffee. You're saying what you're doing. Awesome. Do it. There's a market for it, definitely. Right. So yeah, it's not a war against infused coffees, and and it's not like we're gonna fight everybody. No, it's farmers doing their thing and pushing the limits, and some are good. So some co-fermented coffees and things are good, and they have a market. And the thing is that for somebody starting to drink coffee, or for a consumer, wanting to learn, if you have a coffee that has very clear, obvious attributes, strawberry, peach, whatever,
yep,
and you present that cup to them, and they cup it and they feel the flavor, then it's very easy. It's very complicated to show a beginner, why a geisha is a geisha. They're like, this is coffee. They don't taste like coffee the first time you try it. But if you try one of these coffees, and I think the natural evolution of that particular consumer would be to go to the real stuff. You start with those, and then you want to see if you can, you want to try the really fancy stuff. And so that's maybe an entryway to it happens with beers and wines and whiskeys. You start with the wines, you start with the more, sweet stuff or fruity, and then you want to go into the higher end wines, and you never go back. But that's your entryway into the super specialty coffees. So they have a place.
Yeah, they have a place. We just have to figure out how to categorize them as an industry and how to better communicate them as a group of conscious producers and consumers. So maybe tell us a little bit more about Black Moon. Dave asked about quality. Obviously, Black Moon is a quality-focused farm, and I think some of your recent accolades kind of lean into exactly what that is. Can you tell us a little bit more about the spec of Black Moon? Barbara is about 100 hectares. The scope of Black Moon, I believe, is 12.
It's smaller. It's almost 10 hectares.
Okay.
The property is like a little bit less than 10. You could say almost 10 hectares. It's at a little bit higher altitude than our highest farm in Hacienda Bárbara. So we always assumed we could produce a good cup of coffee.
Now, a good cup or a great cup?
Excellent.
Well, when you know, it's like I tell people that friends that want to buy farms or they want to start now in Panama. Everybody wants a coffee farm, right? So I always explain like, yes, altitude it's like very important.
Yeah.
If you buy a farm with high altitude, you can say you have the potential, but you never know until you actually produce it if you really have like a winner, or a competition quality cup, or you're almost you can assume you're gonna have it, but that's only a percentage of what you need. So we kind of knew we had the potential. It used to be a vegetable farm. My father's one of my father's vegetable farms, and I was always like wanted to test coffee there, right? And people like our good friend and your good friend Wilford Lamastus from Lamastus Estates, we're very close, and after I'll go back 40 years. When we moved from the farm, my family, we moved from the farm to another place in Boquete. We lived across the street from Wilford. So we are very, very close. And, my grandfather was very close to his father. It's a thing of, we're all natives from Boquete. So he was always like, tell your father to plant geisha. Tell your father to plant every time. Like every time we talked about the farm, he's like, you should be planting geisha. You shouldn't be planting, lettuce or whatever. He was always telling me that for years. So and we kind of knew because in that region in Alto Kiel is where probably the best or one of the best coffees in Boquete and Panama come from there. So I convinced my father to plant like a corner of the farm, a little bit, with geishas, and that we planted in like 2017, 2016, maybe a little bit, which is the areas that are producing now. That's where we're getting the geisha.
Okay.
So we started over there, and then my dad continued the vegetables on the other side of the farm, and that kind of started growing. So when it was like in 2019, my dad came to me and said, this vegetable business, it's not going well. I'm just gonna basically retire. I'm gonna keep growing vegetables here. So if you want to take over the farm, you take over. So I said, okay. I didn't know, I knew in what I was getting into, but once you're there, it's even worse. So those areas started producing like on 2020, I think. 2020 we got the first picking, few pounds. I played with 1 kilo batches of fermenting and playing with the meat. We knew immediately you have to start playing with different processes. Because what I do in my farm, the recipe of hours, temperature, whatever I do for my coffee will not work for my neighbor probably.
Right.
Or it will come out different. It will change. So we did that first year, few pounds. The second year, which was 2021, 2022 harvest, we thought we could make 1 BOP lot. So we concentrated on processing.
What's the volume you need at this point?
fermenting.
You need 70 kilos?
In those years, it was 150 pounds
150 pounds. Okay.
of green. So surprisingly, we were able to, process all that quantity, and then we started doing some wash coffees. So at the end of when the BOP came, we had enough for one lot of wash, one lot of natural geisha. Yeah. And we had just planted the Chiroso, which we planted in 2020. So it was very small, not producing. Actually, the first year we cupped it was terrible. So that year we came 10th on the natural and 11th on the wash. So that was like we were like, okay, we're in the right path. This might work. As you know, being on a top 10 in the BOP is a huge deal.
Yeah, it's a huge feat.
It's a huge thing, and it has become so competitive that just being in the auction, which is the top 18 geishas of each category and the top 14 of varietals, just being in the auction is like a huge deal for a farmer these days. It's very competitive. So yeah, that's basically the story of Black Moon, but then we started planting the rest of the farm, and I started running. I still have those problems where we planted coffee and it would die, not grow, or be just like maybe barely surviving. And we were putting fertilizer and everything, and it wasn't working. So I said something else. There's something else. These soils are so depleted because even when my father got the farm, I don't know, 30 years ago or more, it was already like an agricultural farm for these kind of crops, like cash crops or lettuces or anything. So who knows how long they've been tilling the soil and intensively growing other. So even though the soils look beautiful, black, and you think they're so rich, they're not. So I started running into those problems, and that's how I got to like, well, maybe we should go and see if we can, maybe to go back to organic and once you go into that rabbit hole, it's like we thought we were gonna be like biodynamic. That sounded so cool, and I started studying biodynamic and this and that. And then I said, no, we can't do that. It's too complicated. It's too complicated, and that's not the reason why we didn't follow that path. It's because I couldn't find the examples of biodynamic in the tropics. All the preparations and everything, and the horns that it's all about doing it in the winter. And I'm like, but how do you do it in the tropics? And maybe there is information, but I couldn't find maybe some information, because some people say they're biodynamic in the tropics and they kind of do it their own way and stuff. And I'm sure it works, but we couldn't find good information of how to adapt biodynamics to the tropics. So I started looking into other ways. I found another way of doing it, regenerative. Now we knew it was going to be regenerative, right? So, and we knew we had to get the soil back, living and all that. So I learned about centropic agriculture, which is a way of it's basically agroforestry, meaning that you plant trees, and in between you have tree rows, or there are many ways to do it, but with your main crop. It can be coffee, it can be wheat, rice, but there are ways. So I started planting the farm. So I have 3 rows. I have the farm kind of organized. in that way. But I knew it was going to take some time. All these things take years, right? So I didn't have that. And so I kept on looking for, so I got into I bumped into another way, which is called soil food web. Was developed by Dr. Elaine Ingham, and she's a soil biologist in the United States. And she has a way of, you can actually, in a microscope, count and measure, good guys, bad guys, bacteria, fungi, this and that. Measure, and by that, you know what you need to improve it, and you can go back there a month later or a year later and see if it worked or not. And being an agronomist and all that, I said, this is the way. This is something I can really see. It's not a philosophy. It's not something like, it's almost, because other things are almost like witchcraft, right? You read about biodynamic and it's all this, but at the end it's the same. It's the same. They're applying, what they're doing is they're applying specific microorganisms to the soil.
Okay.
They do it with the moon and that and this and that. But it's in the end it's the same. So I always say it's like religions. There are many, and they all go to the same. It's like many paths to one to get to one place.
So in a way, you're borrowing attributes or elements from different philosophies and kind of melding them all together to create the Hunter Tedman formula specifically for Black Moon, which would be different to another parcel of land that you might operate.
Yes. And of course, Hacienda Barbara is my job, right? Black Moon is my own farm. So I always say, I can lose money in Black Moon if I want to, right? I'm going to save the planet and and maybe, I can play with it because nobody's going to fire me if it doesn't work. So that's why also, of course, in Hacienda Barbara, we're going to do it, but we're testing areas. We're testing it, doing the same, but we're testing it. But in the meantime, we're sustaining production. Of course, it's a business. In the same in Black Moon. And the thing also in Black Moon is that since we started small, we were, and the quality was good, luckily, or very good. We were able to sell our coffee for a higher price. Doesn't mean I make more money. It's just that I have more money to spend in the farm, doing these kinds of things, and failing and doing it again. Like we're just planting some areas like for the third or fourth time, and now it's like looking really good because it's looking really good because we failed 3 years in a row, and now it's like working. It's working actually. This year, it's finally, you can see them growing. They're not just like losing leaves day by day.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah. And what I tell people is like, I do it because I can, right? It would be ridiculous for me to go to one of our supplier farmers and tell them like, you have to be regenerative or I won't buy your cherry, something like that. It's stupid. So I'm doing it. And with this soil food web approach, I know it's going to work. I just need to work a little bit more on it. But I'm thinking that maybe with Black Moon, eventually I'll have like the way of doing it in coffee in Panama and Boquete. Something that I can go to a farmer and say, let's do this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it'll work. That's the main goal at the end, right? But it's going to take some time. Yeah. Sometime, I think it's going to take short time, but sometime, yeah. Mm-hmm. Not 20 years. It might take 4 years.
You have a few different varietals. Is that based on the soil? or you wanted to just take the risk of growing something other than geisha, or how did you make that selection?
Well, yeah, business-wise, it probably makes no sense for me to be growing other things than geisha, because geisha always, yeah, you can see it in the auction. It's like, yeah, the Chiroso had a super price for a varietal, but compared to the other guys,
Geisha is the brand. It's what people know Panama for.
Geisha is the brand, and geisha is geisha. Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons I did it is just because I just like it. I like to have other things. I like to test things. Try other varieties. We just like it. I like to grow other things. That's why I have sheep. That's why I have oranges, whatever. We just like to grow things. I grow tomatoes also. I have a hydroponic tomato operation. So yeah, it's just growing things. That's why I went to school for. So anything it's cool for me to work on. So we're always trying new varieties other than geisha. In the case of the Chiroso, it was very specific because since I travel to Colombia often, Chiroso was discovered in Colombia, specifically in a place called Urrao, which is a town in Antioquia. Antioquia is the province or the state, or however you want to call it, in Antioquia, and Urrao is in Antioquia. So I started hearing about this Chiroso. He was starting to win some competitions over there. He was kind of famous locally, very local. So I got to try it. And for the first time, I was able to try to actually cup. When we're cupping, it's not rare to find like peach, right? It's in geisha we always say like peach, but it's very subtle. You experienced coppers can get those attributes from other coffees, but in the case of Chiroso, specifically the one in Colombia, it actually tasted like peach, juice. The little box, the thing that you juice. And I was like, wow, this is the first time I actually taste something that it really tastes like the actual thing, right? And I remember I was in those days I was there with other people that didn't cup, and they could get it. They could actually get that peach flavor, which is not common on people that don't cup or try coffees often. So and then of course it has other things, and I could see, and I said, well, this has a lot of potential. And so one day we were visiting farmers, and we got to a guy that had Chiroso, and he was showing us around and this and that, and I don't know if I made a comment or something, and he's like, "Do you want seeds?" I said, "Sure." And he went into the drying bed with a plastic bag and went like, put a little bit in it, and he's like, "Yeah, take it." And I took it to Panama, and I made a nursery, and it worked. And that's the Chiroso I have. Actually, I'm planning. I have to on my next trip to Panama. I'm going to visit him because he probably doesn't know, where the seeds ended up.
Right.
I'm sure he doesn't even know what the best of Panama is. Maybe he knows. I don't know, but I don't think so. So I know exactly who he is. So he probably doesn't remember me, but I remember him. So I'll go there next time. I have to bring some presents. Yeah.
Bring him some roasted coffee to try the Chiroso in Panama.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I have to share the profit, man. It was a really it was a really amazing gift.
Right.
So when I always laugh because when I planted it, I took a picture. Like when we finished the planting, I took a picture and I posted it. I can show you the post. I posted like next BOP contender.
Oh wow!
On Instagram, and I just posted it because once you've been here around here, and I don't want to sound how do you say I don't know, but once you've tried varieties in Panama and in other places, you know that in most cases they do better here in cupping. In most cases,
okay.
You can get varieties from, and it's not a secret. It's not that I'm bragging. It's just a fact in most cases. So I said, well, if it cups that way here, it's gonna cup much better in Panama.
Right. Why is that?
It does. It's the terroir. It's the terroir. We have. I can list a couple of things, and this is like very well. You know this story because you come to Panama, but yeah, I'll tell it. Panama is very narrow and long, so it's very narrow. The distance, if you're here in Boquete, for example, or if you draw a line on a map from the Atlantic Ocean or the Caribbean Sea, straight line that passes through Boquete to the Pacific, it's probably 80 something kilometers. It's very narrow. And we have a mountain chain in the middle called the Talamanca mountain chain, which comes from Costa Rica. It's a small mountain chain that ends in about in the center of Panama, lengthwise. So Boquete is very close to that mountain chain. And then we have the volcano. It's not the only volcano in Panama, but it's the only like official volcano, like a mountain and a volcano, right? There's other like volcanic sites, but they're not actually like volcanoes, like a mountain, like you picture a volcano. The only one it's the one that we have here, which is the highest point in the country. And so we have number one, the position. I was going to go to the volcano, but number one is the position. We're very narrow, and our country doesn't go from south to north like Central America does. Once you go to Costa Rica, they're going like south to north. We go from east to west. Like Panama is, you see the Americas, South America here, North America here, but Panama is like this.
Right.
It's sideways. So what happens is that the winds that come from the north, the trade winds and other wind currents that come from the north, are strong enough to go over. So they bring moisture and influence from the Caribbean Sea over the mountains of that mountain chain into Boquete, Volcán, Renacimiento, in this area. So we have like Atlantic influence, but we're on the Pacific side. That creates a very rare and specific and particular weather conditions that you only find like here.
Right. Okay.
It's cloudy, misty, cold, but also sunny, and it's a mix of many things. And that's one of the reasons that our terroir is very special. The other main reason is the volcano. When that volcano blew up, 100,000 years ago, those ashes and that material that it blew up created the soil that we have today. And it's magical. I don't know what's in it specifically, but those clays, those nutrients, whatever is in there, the composition of that soil, it's very, very special. Actually, and you can see the further you go from the volcano, you can see almost how the soils change and the crop quality also. most of the best coffees are around the volcano, very close to the volcano. So because we had that material spread out in that radius around the volcano when it was erupting. It's not active. They say over 100,000 years ago it was active, but now it's not. And then also the altitude. We don't have like super high altitude, like 3,000 meters or something. Well, the volcano is, but most farms are 2,000 and below, right? But 2,000 meters here is very cold. Very cold, very hard to grow coffee, very hard to grow things. So yeah, that creates a very, very special terroir that for some reason coffee loves.
Right.
And like I said, most varieties that you cup in other countries that are very good, because it's a reality. Our neighbors have really good coffees. You can find super geishas in Costa Rica and super geishas in Colombia also, and of course Ecuador. They all have they're also their special places. But for some reason, when you bring those same varieties here, they like fully express their attributes in cupping, not so much in production, because in a lot of cases the yields are lower. The places where we grow coffee are like hard to grow the plant. But once they start producing, they produce super.
Well, they produce at such a high quality tier that annually it seems that Panama sets the record for the global pricing of coffee.
In the case of, and I'll go back a little bit, in the case of Hacienda Barbara, we used to be certified organic because we're always looking for that way of producing and, maybe improving instead of damaging the environment or something. We would like to improve it. So we started as organic. After a few years, about several years of being certified organic, we just couldn't produce enough for the differential in price. So basically, there wasn't a business there. And as we all know now, being organic doesn't mean that you are improving the environment necessarily. Some are, but some are not. Some are producing just like conventional, but using organic products. And you might be hurting the soil or depleting the soil, causing erosion, causing CO2 emissions, and be organic. You can. And it happens, I think, in most cases. But also you reduce your yields a lot. And the differential in the market doesn't pay for that difference. In production.
When you're saying differential, that means a premium on the coffee itself.
That premium, yeah. The premium for being organic, it's not enough for what you lose in yields, right? As a farmer. So that's why in most cases they don't do it because they would lose money. Most organic coffee that you have on the market, or a lot of it, it's what I call organic by default. It comes from areas where you just don't get fertilizer. There are no pesticides, so you have to produce in very small farms, very small farmers. They can do organic production, and usually those farms are not only coffee. They have other crops, and that's the way they survive, right? And you get that coffee. It's a completely different model. It's not like 100-hectare farm organic and you're producing just coffee. That gets complicated really, really fast. But we still have that that philosophy, right? We're always trying. We went to a conventional system, and by conventional meaning using maybe synthetic fertilizers or pesticides. So we had to go there because during it was 2013, 14 when we had the big rust outbreak in Central America. It was rust is a fungi. It's a disease that once it attacks a plant, the plant drops all the leaves. In some cases it dies, some cases it don't, but you lose production and you might lose it for 2 years until the plant recovers. So it's a very aggressive, very it affects a lot of the coffee plantations in the world. So something happened in 2012, 13, and part of 14 in the weather. So something like a lot of conditions aligned, and this fungi was able to like explode. So we had a huge outbreak all over Central America mostly, and we had to spray. So we dropped the certification, the organic certification, and we started being conventional. But we kept the philosophy. So we use, the lowest possible use of pesticides. Since we have a good team of, I'm an agronomist, we have an agronomist that actually physically runs the farm. He's like there every day. So we're always walking the fields, checking, measuring how much of the disease is out there. And we only spray like if we have to in the areas that we have to. We limit the use of for example, herbicides to like once a year, or even in most areas, not even once a year. We try to do it by hand. We don't use insecticides. That some farmers use insecticides. We just don't. We live with bugs, and if we have a little bit of damage from them, we find a way to live with it. That's like a really no for us. We might use a little bit of herbicide. You need to in some areas, and fungicides you kind of have to, but to a minimum, a very low minimum. In the case of the fungicide, we're lucky that the fungicides that kill rust, for example, are considered like green band, very mild compared to other pesticides. They're still a pesticide, we know, but very mild, and we never find traces of it, like in our beans or anything. You would have to spray like tons of it to have like traces on coffee beans. So yeah, we control all those things to make sure we don't, we stay on a safer side. Yeah.
What was it like in 2013, 2014 when you and the team had to make the decision to spray and essentially forego the work you did to get organic certified? Was that a easy decision to make, or was that a really big, council meeting that had to go through to decide and vote, or what does that process look like? Obviously a big decision.
Yeah, it was a big decision, and it took a while because we were looking for many solutions before, right? Before we made that decision, we were trying all kinds of organic applications and this and that and removing that. Trying all kind of, every recipe we could find in the organic world. But it's a very, very tough disease or fungi to control organically. To this day, there's nothing organically that can actually stop it.
Oh, wow. You
can kind of slow it down, but once you have it, it's very difficult to stop without using a chemical. It took a while. It was a tough decision. We were really proud of being organic, and we were really we were like really trying, some other tried to be organic, and it was just like, I don't do anything, so I'm organic. But not we did, we were composting and spending tons of money on making compost and biochar, and we were spraying all kinds of organic, anything that you can find in the books we were doing. So we were really proud of it, but we just couldn't. We just couldn't. And I think with the years we're probably doing a better job now, because even though we use some synthetic fertilizers and pesticides, fungicides probably is the one we use most. Now we're able to go back and start testing better ways to do it, because what we knew 10 years ago, now we know a lot more. Now that's like science, the science of soil biology, organic production, regenerative farming. It wasn't there. It was not there 10 years ago. And now it's spread out, and now we know better ways to do things, even in combination with conventional farming. Now we know that to improve the soil, or even fix carbon to the soil and all those things that we want, you don't have to be 100% organic. You can have a mix. Of course, the goal is to get away from those things, right? From synthetic fertilizers and pesticides. And I think we will. Because we're always trying to. But now we're able to test and really play with other ways to do it. Regenerative farming is something we're really getting into. As you know, my farm, Black Moon, is in a regenerative farming operation. We started from scratch, and we started that way from the beginning. In the case of Hacienda Barbara, we are already testing some areas. We have a few hectares now that we're managing that way, and we're measuring, the soil biology, organic matter, and things, and to see if we're really doing it right, and playing with a few hectares before we start growing into the rest. Changing a big farm from one day to the other and say, no, we're regenerative now, and just stop doing whatever you do. It's a recipe for failure. So we're always chasing that goal of not using it.
The goal there being essentially the cleanest production. Is that the idea? Cleanest production, least chemical inputs or man-made artificial inputs into the earth, and try to what exactly is regenerative agriculture? How would you define that?
I would define it is the one where, you regenerate the soil, because in regenerative farming, you work a lot with the soil. In the case of Black Moon, that's our goal, to increase the biology in the soil and the biodiversity in the soil. Of course, to get that, to get there, you have to increase biodiversity also above the soil. Different trees, different plants, different weeds, different crops. You cannot have only coffee and dirt on top and expect to have biodiversity under it, right? You have to have shade, native trees, and even let some weeds go. And, you need that biodiversity. If you can include animals, chickens, ducks, we use sheep, it's even better, because what you want is diversity, basically. And you have to be able to measure, to demonstrate that you are regenerating. Because, as you know, there's a lot of greenwashing now. Everybody's stealing the term, like in organic. Now everybody's regenerative. and they just put it anywhere. They stamp it on a label, and that it goes. But in the end, you should be able to demonstrate by measuring how much carbon you fix into the soil, how much you increase your organic matter, for example, or how there's many things that you can measure, but let's say biodiversity in the soil. You can look at it in the microscope and see if you have the good bacteria and good fungi. And for example, I can say in 2015 I only had like pathogens and my soil was anaerobic, and now I only have like good guys, the good fungi, the good bacteria, and my soil is, full of organic matter. I should be able to measure it and demonstrate it.
Okay.
To show that you are, like the word says, regenerating the soil.
Right. And annually that count of good guys, as you said there, that count every year should go upward.
Yeah. If that's what you're measuring, yeah.
Okay.
It should go upward. Your organic matter should increase.
Mm-hmm. Will that directly increase the production of how much coffee, or is it just going to increase the quality? Or if I'm a new producer and I'm hearing the pitch for the first time, what's the benefit?
Okay, I think there are many benefits. If we're gonna see the financial part of it or the business part of it, yes, in theory, once you have a balanced soil, with all the good guys in there, and you have the biodiversity and everything, you should be able to produce in a very low cost way because you are not dependent on external supplies. That is the problem with conventional farming and organic farming also. You depend on external supplies. You have to buy, pesticides or fertilizer from whatever it is that they make them, and then you have to bring them to Panama and put it here. That's like a broken system, right?
Right.
And it's expensive. So if you would have all the life in the soil and everything, you don't need them. Maybe you need a little bit, but you're not depending on it. We're like addicts. Our plants are like addicts.
Yeah.
And it's not supposed to be that way. It wasn't that way, pre-World Wars. We didn't have fertilizer or anything. We would produce. Now we forgot it as a species how we used to do it, but everybody used to do it that way. Now we're dependent on those. So yeah, on the business side, you should be able to produce maybe not as much because a plant probably is not supposed to produce that much, but at a lower cost. So your profit or should be better, because you can produce less but make more money per pound or per kilo than producing a ton and then just making a little bit. You know that better than me. You're a roaster, right? But I'm glad that you mentioned the quality side because I say it's a theory that it's not really. It's proven in other crops. When the plants are, you could say, left alone or not as pampered as we do it now, they are forced to kind of defend themselves from bugs, from diseases or whatever. And they do it by producing their own compounds, to defend themselves. And a lot of those compounds are related or somehow together with good flavor compounds, right? You see that in wine. If you have ever tried like a real organic tomato, and you try a conventional tomato, it's like the flavor is like a real tomato.
Right.
Strawberries, right? Strawberries actually taste like fake strawberry if they're like organic or wild. You know, that's a real flavor. So in coffee, it has to be the same. It's just that in coffee it's very difficult to demonstrate and measure, because in coffee everything takes years. And we cup it, and maybe it's like slightly better, but maybe that year was drier, and so there's too many variables happening at the same time in a coffee field, that makes it difficult for me or for anybody to say, well, I've been regenerative for 5 years, so my cup is better because of that. People are going to say, no, it's not that. It's because the years were cloudy, or, there's so many variables that a statement like that, it's difficult for me to defend it. But it should be that way, right? If the plants are healthy, living on their own, you have biodiversity in the soil, creating also those compounds in the soil that the plant absorbs and are usually related to good flavors in fruits and other crops are there. So yes, I think we should increase quality year by year, or at least sustain it, because what we observe and you probably know better than me, because you try coffees from all over the world all the time for years. In a lot of cases, farms lose their quality over the years.
Right.
And that can be from many reasons. But I think one of them is that you're slowly depleting the soil. Maybe not as some do it faster. Like if you have a super intensive coffee plantation with tons of herbicides and tons of fertilizer, you never notice it because you kill the soil in 1 year. But some people do it much better. But still, you still have a crop there. So maybe it takes 10 years to feel it in the cup, but sometimes it happens. And this is a comment I've heard from many people like you, buyers, roasters. They notice it because, you try coffees all the time from all over the world for many years. So you have the data. So if you're able to maintain your quality, that's a big win.
Right.
And if you can increase it, of course, even better.
Hunter, conscious of time here, I do want to kind of wrap things up. Is there anything else you would like to dive into before we do end the call here, or how are you feeling about the conversation?
Great conversation. Thank you very much. It's always fun to do this, to have this, communicate what we do as farmers, as producers, exporters. And I think it's very interesting. It's usually very interesting for the consumer in consumer countries that maybe have never seen a coffee tree, and they can only guess how that coffee is processed, how it gets those flavors, and it's always fun, yeah. And the more I think the more people learn about it, the more they will appreciate. Not only because in Panama we're blessed, right, with our terroir, with the geishas and this and that, and as farmers we are like obsessed with cup quality and everything. But every farmer, every grower in the world does it very similar. We all struggle to make ends meet. We all risk a lot when we plant a coffee field, hoping that in 3-4 years we will be able to sell it, and it'll taste good. And it's a huge effort. So I think the more we communicate this part of this part of the business, the more our consumers, our clients will appreciate it. Because a lot of times we want to do this with certifications and direct trade and this and that, but it's still very abstract for the guy or the girl actually buying that cup of coffee. It's very abstract.
Right.
But if you're able to talk to somebody that does it, small farmer in Panama, farmer in Brazil, we're all similar. We're not that different. So I think that's huge for the industry. So thank you guys for having these kinds of endeavors, and allowing us to communicate what we do.
Yeah, thank you. I think this has been such an insightful conversation. You're a man of many roles, and super fascinating in each of the roles to kind of dive in and understand what it is that you do on a day-to-day basis as a coffee producer and a key member in the Panamanian coffee scene, and what you do on a day-to-day basis to create some of the best coffees in the world. And I think that's an easy line that I'm allowed to say based on your Churroso result, that you know for a fact that you're producing some of the best coffees in the world. So thank you so much, Hunter, for being on By the Drip today and talking with Dave and I about your day-to-day role. Much appreciated.
Yeah, we really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, guys. Anytime. We're glad to come back. Yeah, with new results, maybe with the Geisha winner.
Yeah, there you go. New goals to achieve, new achievements on the horizon.